Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Trump sees veterans as the perfect armed teachers, but they're divided. President Donald Trump has held up veterans as the ideal armed teachers who could ward off school shooters. But the reality is very few of today's educators served in the military, and those who did may reject the idea of carrying a gun to class. Even with the influx of Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans entering the workforce, just 2.1% of U.S. teachers in 2016 were veterans, according to federal data. In 1960, during the post-World War II era when Trump was a teen, 59% of male teachers had military service. While some veterans among the nation's teaching corps back Trump's idea and see it as a calling to use their skills, others interviewed by Politico said they are adamantly opposed, even if they have the weapons familiarity that comes with military service. They said they worry about accidental discharges and that their skills are no longer fresh. Dan Staples, a New Jersey math teacher, said he trained as a military police officer to respond to a mass school shooting. But he said it is a perishable skill. At the time, when I was doing that, I was in fantastic shape. I was going to the range. I was going to regular training, and that's what I was prepared to do, said Staples, a Marine who served in the pre-9/11 era. Now, I'm prepared to be a math teacher. So I receive professional development on the quadratic formula and best methods of teaching and technology that pertains to my profession. I don't get firearms training. According to an analysis of Census Bureau data by the Department of Education, 110,000 teachers in K-12 schools in 2016 were veterans, or 2.1%. In comparison, 5.4% of the civilian workforce had served. Overall, about 7% of the population had served in the military. Still, military veterans are highly desirable teaching candidates. A federal program called Troops to Teachers since 1993 has worked to help veterans navigate leaving the military and entering teaching. Several veterans who work in schools say they worry about perpetrating an accidental discharge or friendly fire incident that could hurt a child, the associated legal liability, and a potential change in the way they relate to their students if they carry a gun. Others say their weaponry skills are no longer current, assuming they even learned to fire a pistol while in the military, the same type of weapon that an armed teacher would likely carry. Many Army infantrymen, for example, train to use a rifle but not extensively on how to fire a pistol. Alexis Underwood, a 7th grade language arts teacher in Florida who did a brief stint in the Marines in the early 1980s, said on paper she'd be a great fit for this type of program, but she would worry about children or others getting hurt by stray bullets or running into her line of fire. I can't live with that, Underwood said. Still, Underwood, who teaches at Mowat Middle School in Lynn Haven, a community with a heavy military presence, said there are other veterans who work in her building with differing opinions. Just as the general population is divided over whether teachers should be armed, she said there are teachers who are veterans who support the idea. People have mixed feelings about it. It's a difficult thing and the stakes are high, Underwood said. We're talking about our kids. Christopher Golden, an Army veteran studying agriculture education at California State University of Fresno, said he sees potential in the idea. Golden, who aims to teach high school, said he would be willing to train to carry a gun in school but believes there should be strict rules about when firearms should be locked up, such as when a teacher is lecturing. As a veteran, I'm okay with it because I've already signed on that line before, that I'll stand up and defend people, Golden said. Separately, Teach for America has about 80 military veterans participating in its program, which places teachers in high-needs schools in urban communities and elsewhere. When Trump was a high school student at New York Military Academy, there were a lot more teachers who had served in the military. In 1960, 59% of all male teachers were military veterans, according to analysis of Census Bureau data by Stephen Ruggles, director of the Institute for Social Research and Data Innovation at the University of Minnesota. In those years, the census only asked men about their military service. During a February 22 meeting with local and state officials on school safety, Trump referred to military members who retire and become teachers as good candidates to be armed in schools. "They know guns, they understand guns," Trump said. Trump said if someone like his chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired Marine four-star general, was a teacher, he wouldn't mind Kelly having a gun. "Nobody is going to attack that school. Because they know General Kelly is the history teacher. And he's got a concealed weapon," Trump said. Aaron Mountikier, director of Teach for America's Veterans Initiative, said the group started to see an uptick in applicants from all branches of the military in 2012, with more than half of the former military applicants identifying as a person of color. She said they have a strong desire to serve and are good at building strong relationships. "A lot of the military veterans possess the characteristics we see in our most effective teachers," Mountikier said. "But those characteristics don't necessarily mean they should carry guns to school," some say. Robert T. Myers, principal at Spring Mills High School in Martinsburg, West Virginia, who served as a marksmanship training instructor in the Marines during the Vietnam era, said he only has one other military veteran in his building, and that veteran served as a logistician and likely didn't have much weaponry training. Myers, who opposes arming teachers, said a lot of work would have to go into training the veterans and ensuring their skills are maintained. "There are many mistakes that can be made," Myers said. "Just because you were in the military doesn't necessarily make you a good candidate," Myers said. "It sounds very simple. Okay, we'll just arm these people. If somebody comes in the building, we'll go ahead and blow them away. But it's much more complicated than that." Trump's tariff war nudges Cohn toward White House exit. Gary Cohn, President Donald Trump's top economic advisor, has been rumored to be on the brink of leaving the White House for months but stayed for one main reason: to stop the president from imposing steep tariffs. By Thursday afternoon, Cohn had lost the fight. In a meeting with steel industry executives, Trump announced plans for a 25% tariff on steel imports and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports. The decision came after a frantic 24 hours in which Cohn and others tried to talk Trump off the ledge. At one point, aides were sure Trump would make the announcement. Then they said he wouldn't. Finally, sitting alongside steel executives, he did. The Dow promptly tanked over 500 points, and Cohn's allies began wondering if this would be the final insult, sending the director of the National Economic Council to the exit. One person close to Cohn, a former Goldman Sachs executive, said he wouldn't be surprised if he eventually left the chaotic and deeply exhausting administration as a result of the decision. A second person close to Cohn described it as a brutal blow that violated one of the NEC director's core beliefs, that protectionism is economically backward and won't lead to increased prosperity. "It's just something he feels very passionate about and he is incredibly good at making the case," this person said, adding that it still isn't clear if Trump's decision would be enough to drive out Cohn. Cohn nearly quit last summer following the president's comments about a white supremacist march in Charlottesville, Virginia. After drafting several resignation letters in the wake of the march, Cohn decided he would stay to help drive through the big tax cut bill that passed last year. He endured his time in the presidential doghouse after penning an op-ed critical of Trump. Cohn did not respond to multiple requests for comment for this story. Aide administration officials and outside advisors close to the matter described the tariff decision-making process. They declined to be named because they were not authorized to speak publicly about the issue. A White House spokesman did not respond to a request for comment. Larry Kudlow, an outside Trump advisor often mentioned as a potential successor as NEC director, said he would not be surprised if Cohn felt burned by the Steele decision. And he sharply criticized the president for Thursday's announcement. "All that will happen with steel tariffs is you will raise prices for all import users, and that includes businesses and of course consumers," Kudlow said. You will wind up hurting millions of people to help 140,000 people in the steel industry. You will be hurting car buyers. Is that really what you want to do? While Cohn isn't expected to depart immediately, any decision to step down would greatly diminish the influence of the remaining moderates in the White House, and it would further isolate the New York delegation in the West Wing, including Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. Cohn, a Democrat, has weathered constant criticism from Trump's conservative allies. Every time he's mentioned as a potential chief of staff, conservatives inside the White House and on Capitol Hill moved to try to block such a move. Now the question is much less whether he could be chief of staff but rather whether Cohn will stay at all. The tariff decision on Thursday capped several weeks of freewheeling and often caustic debates that one White House aide called absolute chaos and featured loud disputes between Cohn and White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, a leading advocate of tariffs. On Wednesday night, Cohn and his allies scrambled to forestall the announcement. They had long hoped Trump would take the full 60 days allowed under the law to make a decision, a time period that would give them more opportunity to make their case to the president about the economic and diplomatic consequences of the decision. Cohn had been working closely with former Staff Secretary Rob Porter to postpone, kill or narrow the scope of the tariffs. But Porter's departure last month amid domestic abuse allegations further complicated their efforts. Porter had been organizing weekly trade meetings in which senior officials and cabinet secretaries debated the merits of the proposals. Without Porter to organize the administration's policy debate, Trump's advisors reverted back to the chaos of the early days of the administration, where aides fell all over each other to influence the president in any way they could. Up until the moment Trump made the announcement on Thursday, senior White House aides were unsure how the meeting would unfold. Asked Thursday morning what Trump was planning, a person closely involved in the administration's trade talks said, "Who the hell knows?" Multiple administration officials told Politico that Trump is unable to sign documents imposing the tariffs on Thursday because key paperwork had not yet been completed. The legal work isn't done, one administration official said Wednesday night, expressing shock that Trump would make an announcement so quickly. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said Thursday that more details on the tariffs, including possible exemptions, would come next week. An industry official said there would not be any tariff exclusions for countries or products except for imports required for military equipment needs, though Trump could still change his mind on the issue if he faces prolonged criticism in the coming days. Cohn has long been suspicious of Navarro, the most vocal trade hawk in the administration. Navarro, along with Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, have been encouraging the president to take aggressive action on trade since the beginning of the administration. And Cohn has come to believe that the men were regularly making their case directly to the president in a bid to short-circuit a border debate among all of Trump's advisors, according to a person who has spoken to him. Cohn's skepticism of the tariffs was echoed by most of the members of Trump's national security team, including National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Defense Secretary Jim Mattis. But Cohn's last-ditch efforts to sway Trump had little effect. People familiar with the issue said the president was dead set on imposing tariffs and had already made up his mind to move forward, especially in the aftermath of a barrage of negative news about his staff that infuriated Trump. Adam Bassutti contributed to this report.